Hello everybody, welcome to another video on this momentous Monday, and wow, look at how long this one is. This is almost an hour long. Wow, oh my god. So before I get into this, because of how long the video is, I just want to say, one, please like the video and subscribe to this YouTube channel. Two, if you want to just skip through parts of this video, you know, I added little chapters to it, so you can just skip through if you want to see specific points in the mission. And lastly, please subscribe to my main channel. The link is in the description. Alright, and so with all of that out of the way, let's talk about what it is we're doing. Right now we are launching a space shuttle. And this space shuttle is bound for quite the exotic destination indeed. This space shuttle is going to go all the way to Duna. And it is going to dock with the Duna base camp in Duna orbit. And then perform, the crew, will perform a landing on the red planet with a separate lander. Admittedly. But that doesn't take away from the fact that the space shuttle is going to go all the way to Duna. So, you might be asking, how are we going to send a space... Oh, here, by the way, here's booster separation. It might be a little bit hard to see, but I did this little cinematic shot. I'm going to go back to regular view. In just a second, you should be able to see the boosters falling away. There you go. But you might be asking, how do I intend to send this space shuttle all the way to Duna? You know, this space shuttle... Even with the external tank, even if we don't detach that as soon as we enter low Kerbin orbit, you know, it still only has about 1,600 meters per second put together. About like, maybe more than 1,600. That's about like 700, 800 in the external tank, and then another 900 worth of OMS fuel. How are we going to get that all the way to Duna? You know, and then how are we supposed to capture at Duna with so little fuel? And then especially, how will we return the shuttle from Duna to Kerbin on just that shoestring budget? And I will tell you, we are not going to use just the fuel that is in the orbiter and the external fuel tank that came off the pad. No, we are going to visit the space station I have in low Kerbin orbit, which has a large external fuel tank attached to it, which has been filled up by several tanker flights before this one. And when I say tanker flights, right, I mean, like, I flew one tanker mission and then just used hyperedit to refill it since I knew the tanker design worked. It's, Matt Lown calls it the rule of the French, but like this isn't like a competition or anything, and I can just kind of do what I want, so yeah. But that is what I did. So that station has lots of fuel reserves that is going to be used to refuel the shuttle's external fuel tank. And then with that extra fuel in the external fuel tank, we will use it to perform a main engine burn to get us to Duna. Then we will perform a capture burn with it, and then a good portion of the circularization, and then we'll finish our circularization with the ohms, and then also with a bit of aero braking. So now we are in Duna orbit, or not Duna orbit, I'm sorry, that's pretty far away. We are now in Kerbin orbit. We are approaching the station with the external fuel tank still attached. We are not running on monopropellant. We are using the space shuttle main engine still, and you can see it right there. We've approached it. And so now I can kind of talk about what's actually in the space shuttle's payload bay, since you can see it, and that is like a little habitation module to sort of help the crew, you know, have a bit more space to live and work and walk around and all that during the roughly 5-year-long voyage to and from, well, I would say 5, yeah, more like 4. A 4-year trip to and from Duna. Now, the trip itself to Duna was only about just less than a year one way, and then they spent about a year and a half in Duna orbit waiting for the next transfer window, because obviously the shuttle didn't have a very large amount of OMS fuel, and it needed some way to oh, we're docking with the station, by the way. This was actually featured in the last episode. You saw me land the space shuttle from the space station. We're going to be landing this space shuttle from quite a bit far away. But, you know, but here it is. It's made a feature. Yeah, and now we're just, you know, refueling the external fuel tank with the fuel from there. We're just going to use one of those big 3.75 meter tanks. I really just kind of eyeballed it. And, spoiler alert, we were, you know, we cut this mission, the budget, I cut the Delta V budget on this mission really, really close. And, like, if it weren't for an accidental provision that I made last episode, we very well may have needed to send the red team to go and recover the space shuttle. Let's just say that. And I won't explain what or how happened and how we did it to keep up the suspense. But yeah, So now that we just refueled the external fuel tank, we're going to warp around to our maneuver node, and then we're going to perform a engine burn with just the 2 space shuttle main engines at the bottom, or I guess on the bottom of the shuttle, right? Because there's 3, one's on top, and then 2 are on the bottom. We're just using those 2 because we don't need the full thrust of all 3 engines when we're in space doing this burn. We already have a very high thrust weight ratio, actually. I think we have like 1.17 with the amount of fuel that's currently in the tank, which first, for this space shuttle, since the OMS is built runs off of the monopropellant engines, it's very nice to have a high thrust weight ratio from the space shuttle main engines, especially because we're going to have a very shitty thrust weight ratio once we ditch that external fuel tank and are running off the OMS motors. I think, like, when fully fueled, the OMS motors only give us a thrust weight ratio of like literally 0.5. Yeah, so I guess I'll enjoy it while I can at the nice and high thrust weight ratio, just over 1.17 of the SSMEs, as we set up our course for Duna. And now I'm going to do something a little bit special. I'm going to transition into live commentary mode to give you a little tour of the crew's living situation aboard the shuttle for the year they'll be spending on the way to the Red Planet. I probably said it before, but now, you know, I'm in live commentary mode, so I didn't know what I just said. Or I don't know what I just said. What I'm going to do now is give you guys a nice little sort of live tour of the living quarters of the current shuttle crew. So let's go ahead and take a look. So, oh, wrong button. It's Y. So as we can see, I'll actually disable the UI for now. So we can see this is the, you know, shuttle flight deck. This is where, you know, this is the command center. I'm sure we all know this. You have these windows to look out into space and to look into the shuttle's payload bay. And then out here we have a window where we can look right at the sun. How nice. Alright, so now let's go through this hatch, which leads to this hatch, which leads to this tunnel, and up there is the docking hatch, so we're not going to open that. We're going to go through here, which leads to a tube, which leads to another hatch, which leads to the little habitation module. There's space for 5 Kerbals in here, so let's shut that hatch and just take a look around. So this is the berth A. I guess this is a little sleeping area. There's another little sleeping area over here. I suppose there's a little table, some seats. What are these? These are kicking horse. I make coffee, maybe food. I'm not sure. Stuff of that nature. Of course, there's a little porthole up here. Really, all you can see is the stars. You can't see very much of the ship through that window, unfortunately. And this window is even more unfortunate. You really can only see to the bottom of the payload bay. So yeah, let's open this hatch now and enter the other portion of the habitation room with just some more seating. I believe that is an exit hatch, an EVA hatch, so we won't be going through there. And then some lockers for the crew to store their things, I guess. What is this little thing? It's just buttons. Okay. And now there's this final hatch here at the end, which leads to a tube, which leads to this little elbow connector with, I think, a weird clipping issue. And then this hatch, which should lead to, yes, here we are, the shuttle's EVA airlock hatch. We'll go out of first person for EVA because EVA controls are pretty weird in first person. But yeah, let's let go of that and let's just take a look at the shuttle. Actually, while I'm out here, I'm going to do something kind of important. And maybe I should have grabbed Bob. I could just do a second EVA, it's fine. So let's do this. Let's turn our UI back on. Let's switch back to the shuttle and use action group 7. Maybe use 6. Hello? Let's share our action groups. Hold on. Oh, it was 5. Okay, we'll pop Action Group 5. And boom, we are doing all of the interplanetary space science. And then with Jeb, we'll go and we'll grab them. And then I guess I'll have to do a second EVA with Bill. Or I guess with Bob. To reset all the experiments. And so that we can run them again when we are in space high above Duna. Then run them again no more space low above Duna. And then yeah, I mean that's really just why these experiments are in the space shuttle, right? Because all the other science experiments that we're going to be performing on the surface are currently in Duna, or not in Duna, they're at Duna, in orbit of Duna, waiting aboard the landing stage that is on the spacecraft we will meet up with. Or, you know, I guess the spacecraft we're going to land, right, on the surface of Duna, because of that aforementioned... Why is the spacebar not working? What the hell? Control works, just not the spacebar. That's weird. But, you know, that spacecraft that we're going to land on Duna is currently docked to the Duna base camp. So something, science, just collecting all these, and then we'll have to come out on EVA just to get Bob to restore them. And as you know, we'll store half of them in here. Actually, we'll do a quick EVA report. How about that? Oh, and you know what? We can do a crew report as well. Hold on. Let's get crew report really quick. Take the data there. Can come over and store it right here. We'll do another EVA report. And we'll do another crew report. Take data, store experiment. Okay. Alright, and now we will return to the... Oh no, hold on, this could be an issue. Hold on. I learned this from a Kerbal physics video. You can use the mouse to angle your Kerbal. So we'll use it to bring us up here. And then get ourselves over to the airlock. Oh, fantastical. Alright, now we can board the airlock. And I guess, yeah, we'll just have to return to the seat the boring way. Let's just grab that. Oh, I guess I'll have to move the flight engineer. Move! Okay. Grab that. We'll grab transfer jet back into the cockpit. And look at that. He's back in the chair. Oh, we're using the wrong IVA. Oh, it doesn't matter. But it doesn't matter because I'm not playing in VR. But yeah, I'll fix that. Okay. Well, yeah, I guess that's it. I guess I'm going to transition out of live commentary and go back to my usual style while I play the rest of the mission normally. Alright, well, thank you for that, past me. I greatly appreciate it. Now we're just going to continue to fly the mission normally. And by that, I mean we're going to coast for about a year. Just under, because a Kerbal year is 400 days, and I think we were cruising for some like 336 days. So yeah, just under a year, until we get to our periapsis around Duna, and then we will flip around and activate the SSMEs once again to perform our capture burn. And once we get just a loose capture, I think what I do is I just loop around. Oh no, I go up to where I'm higher above the planet, so I can actually perform an inclination change, because or I guess a plane change, because we're in a polar inclination. You know what I mean. Because we're going to rendezvous with the Duna Base Camp space station that we placed into orbit in the last episode of the... Oh, wait. Oh, crap. You know what? So when I said the space station I visited in the last episode, I actually meant the episode before that. The video where I went and landed on the Mun. Because, you know, the last video that went up was the Shuttle C video. But I kind of forgot about that because I'm, like, recording this the day after. And actually, speaking of me recording this the day after that... recently we've reached 100 subscribers. Thank you guys so much. It really means a lot to me. You know, probably not a lot of you know this, but I started this YouTube channel like back in middle school in like COVID times. I was in 7th grade, the summer of COVID when I started this channel, and now I'm in college. I just finished up my first year college, and I'm like so happy. I'm so thankful for everybody who has kind of supported this channel through the thick and thin, over the many years that it has existed, over the years I've posted, the years I've stopped posted, and oh hey look, we just ditched the external fuel tank. We're now going to just get ourselves lined up for some aero braking on the OMS motors, because I want to conserve as much OMS fuel as I possibly can, and it's gonna come in pretty handy later in the mission, and you will see how so. So so we are now just gonna shut the cargo bay as we just do some it's actually very gentle aero braking. I probably could have left the bay open. Like no re-entry gas is gonna start, like plasma flare started to really appear because we are coming in very, very high above Duna, and Duna's atmosphere is very, very thin. In fact, when we were actually doing the final Duna Descent, no like plasma flare really showed up, even when we were coming in at we're going into the deeper portion of the atmosphere. Duna's atmosphere is just so thin that for re-entry heating is really just a non-issue. And actually, even on our Kerbin re-entry, heating was a non-issue. Now, granted, that was because I took a very, very conservative path through the atmosphere, doing a number of aero braking passes. We actually aerocaptured on Kerbin, and that was part of the initial mission profile that I had outlined, was to perform an aerocapture around Kerbin because, it's the space shuttle. It's what it's designed to do. It's designed to, go through re-entry and use the atmosphere more than a regular spacecraft. And also because, we need to get into a nice low kind of point where we aren't coming in super, breakneck fast, in order to be able to line up and land on the Kerbal Space Program, the Kerbal Space Center's runway. That out of the way, I just want to go back to saying thank you guys all so much for 100 subscribers. This channel has been around for like 6 years at this point. Now it is kind of relegated to just being my alt channel that I just use for variety content, mostly Kerbal Space Program. Because my main channel is now kind of dedicated to Typical Colors 2. Link to that's in the description. Please subscribe. I don't want to say it's like disheartening to see that, this alt channel where I post Kerbal Space Program has more subscribers and the videos perform better than, my main channel videos where I put in lots of kind of production quality value to those videos, well thought out, well paced. Well, I wouldn't, well thought out videos. I guess it's up to the beholder whether or not they're well paced, but I think they're well paced. But yeah, not to say it's disheartening, right? Because I'm very, very thankful for having, 100 subs on this small little channel. I'd like to I would really appreciate it if you subscribe to the main channel, is I guess what I'm saying. Jokes aside, this video, I guess it can kind of serve as like a pseudo 100 sub special, but this isn't like the proper 100 sub special I wanted to do. What I'm thinking about is, like my first ever mission was sending a Soyuz to Minmus, and then for the channel's first anniversary, I did a redux of that mission. And so I'm thinking, since then I've gotten way better at this game, and I could probably send it to Eve, maybe? I feel like that'd make an interesting video, because Eve is a, generally considered the toughest destination in Kerbal Space Program, aside from a Joule 5, but that, I don't want to do Joule 5. I did one of those, and it took me several days of playing the game. I had to take a lot of breaks, so I don't want to do that again. At least not, for a while. At some point I'll probably do one. But yeah, maybe I'll do a Soyuz to Eve for a proper 100 subs, thank you celebration video. I don't know. Let me know in the comments what you think of that idea. So now that I've talked about that, I can get back to talking about what's on the screen. And what's on the screen is the space shuttle as we approach the Duna Base Camp Space Station. Long ago, we have ditched the nice external fuel tank that was powering our high-thrust SSMEs, and we are now going to have to use the really shitty OMS motors. And it isn't helping that our cargo bay is going to be fully laden throughout this entire mission. Now, granted, in the cargo bay, I did stick a little bit of extra RCS fuel. You can actually see it in there right ahead of the airlock module. But, that only brought us back up to 963 meters per second, which is, I almost want to say, just a tiny bit less than what the shuttle has when it's fully unladen. So So yeah, and I mean, I was actually getting a little bit concerned towards the end of the mission that the heavy payload in the payload bay was going to throw off our weight and lift balancing on entry and descent, but it actually didn't. It was perfect. The landing was beautiful, and I do sincerely believe that it proves without a shadow of a doubt that I am the best Kerbal Space Program space shuttle pilot to ever grace this video game. That's a joke, by the way. I would consider myself good at this game, especially when it comes to space shuttles, because they're like my favorite kind of spacefaring vehicle. But I'm actually very impressed that I managed to, put the shuttle down. I'm impressed with myself that I managed to put the shuttle down on the runway in the manner that I did. But I guess I get to talk about that when it happens, and I should talk about what's happening now. What's happening now is we just docked with the space station, with the Duna Base Camp space station. So we're now going to get Bill on EVA to fix that docking port that I mentioned was all messed up in the last video. And he's going to do something very important for the shuttle that actually ended up saving the mission. And it has to do with that little, or I guess it's not very little, that big Mark III rocket fuel fuselage that you can see attached to the station. But we'll get to that when we get to that, right? So what is happening now? What is the mission plan now? Well, now we're going to get Bob and Jebediah on board the Duna exploration lander, the first one. And I feel like I should give it a name. Yeah, I might have to get back to you. We can name it like Falcon, something maybe, like play on Eagle. I don't know. I like to name my space. Oh, this is what we're doing. This is what Bill had to do. Let me talk about it really quick. We put that docking port there for a very specific reason. We ripped it off of the little top parachute / SAS node that's on the top of the exploration lander, just in case, because I wasn't sure if we would be able to make it back to Kerbin, because according to Transfer Window Planner, we did only need 600 meters per second to return to Kerbin without the insertion burn, which was always the plan, right? Because the aero brake or the Aerocapture would have been free, like fuel. When we're talking about the cost of like Delta V coming out of your fuel budget, aero capturing is free, and that was always the plan. So I just calculated without the insertion burn, and it was only 600 meters per second, and we had like 700, just short of 800 in the worth of OMS fuel. So I wasn't concerned, but then when I looked at I decided to put that there. Oh, we crashed a little bit, by the way, and then started tumbling, just because I ran out of fuel a little bit too late, and or I guess a little bit too early, and then we hit the ground going a little too fast. But yeah, it was reaching a little quick save and continue to do the descent. Mostly parachutes are doing the brunt of the work. And then we just fire up the engine a little bit because we are coming just slightly too fast. We're going at like 30 meters per second. And if we hit faster than like 10, those landing struts don't really like it. So we will just fire up the engine a little bit at the last second just to give us that little bit of extra deceleration we need to do this. Wow. Wow, that was awesome. Nice, beautiful, soft landing on the surface of Duna. We did it. This is the first set of Kerbal boots to touch the the surface of Duna. Wow, we can actually go and jettison that little parachute module because it is blocking the docking port. In just a second. Can we go? Can we press the spacebar? What am I doing? There it goes. Yep, there it goes, flying off with the Separatrons because we no longer need it, and we are now fully prepared for ascent. But we're not ascending yet. We do have our surface activities to do, so we'll go and extend the ladders to do those. And then I guess I'll talk about them while they're happening. But let me just finish up what I was saying, right? So that was like the transfer window planner. I guess it was assuming that calculation was assuming we were in like an equatorial orbit, which is generally just more convenient for like maneuvering, creating maneuver nodes, generally space flying, take your pick. But we are in a polar orbit, which is more expensive to kind of get ourselves ejected and tour on a course that will bring us to Kerbin. So now I know. I did not know this before this mission, but now I know that it's going to cost about 1,500 meters per second, probably a little bit more to get. I honestly would probably round that up to like 1,700 because, well, no, because the booster itself had 500 and we had 700 worth of monoprop, so we will call it 1,400. 1,400. We'll work in 100 extra meters of redundancy. 1,500 meters per second to return. So next episode we'll probably have to add some more kind of fuel reserves, maybe something to just give the external fuel tank a little bit of extra kick. That way it can, also be used to perform the Duna ejection burn, and then coast back on the ohms for reentry. Because also the ohms runs on the same fuel as RCS, and we didn't actually fully burn off all our monopropellant with the ohms. We actually burned off the most of it with RCS. Oh, but I'm spoiling again. Come on, what am I doing? Now we can see, Bob exited the lander. Jebediah can gracefully fall down the lander, snap his neck, and plant the Kerbal flag on the surface. The first Kerbal flag on the surface of Duna. It will not be the last, as we will be returning to Duna very many times. We'll be establishing, surface bases. We need to be building some sort of like transit lander to bring to ferry crew from the surface to the thing. It'll be nice and lightweight, but it won't really have any scientific payload. So we'll need to continue sending over exploration landers to perform more landings in all the biomes, and we'll need to perform more valuable science like what Bob just did by doing that little, golf club experiment. Speaking of experiments, we can now just collect all the data. The first time around we collected data, right? It was data from flying low above Duna. Oh my god, I forgot to mention it. So I actually probably did while I was on EVA, in the little live commentary section. But what I did was I just added some extra scientific instruments to the shuttle's payload bay. And then we used those to just gather some data that we were missing from the lander, from what we would be getting from the lander. So during the Duna aero break, we got data from the upper atmosphere, and then we also got data from high above Duna, low above Duna, and then also interplanetary space. And then, we just did the standard procedure where we gather every experiment twice and save half of them for processing and then send the other half back to Kerbin. So now we're just setting up our little surface science experiments. We have all the experiments that are necessary for, performing science on a body with an atmosphere. We have a weather station, we have a seismometer, the goob monitor, and then of course we just have some solar panels to power the whole thing. Ideally, I would have stuck an extra solar panel in there so we could get that little communitron running, or I could have just brought Bill to the surface, but it's the first set of boots that are going to grace the surface of Duna. Jebediah's got to be there. But Jebediah was not the first out of the lander. I think it was Bob out of the lander. But, Jeb was there, and he flew a lot of the mission. Valentina is actually going to fly in the commander seat for the remainder of the mission, the shuttle commander seat. I'm going to say she is responsible for the command of the vessel on the return trip to Kerbin. Jebediah flew it for just about a year, straight. He was the acting commander of the vessel. On their return trip, Valentina is going to be in the commander's seat, working, to bring the crew home, which is, it's just as important as putting them down here, because, you put them down on Duna, and then what does it matter if they don't come back? So yeah, I know a lot of players don't mind sending Kerbals on like one-way missions, but I really don't like doing that, especially not the OG4, because it's one thing if it's a one-way mission like of a space station or a surface base, whereas like theoretically they do have, ways to, we're leaving Duna now, by the way. Check out this little ascent that I captured with the camera tools mod. This is actually how I captured the initial Kerbin, or parts of the initial Kerbin Ascent, like that cinematic opening shot that you saw before, or I guess at the beginning of the video, which is, oh my god, it's almost 28 minutes ago you saw that. Wow, you've been here that long? Hats off to you. I really appreciate you sticking around. But yeah, we can just ascend from the surface of Duna, going up pretty steep at first, and then we'll just perform a gravity turn, making sure that we go north. We're performing our gravity turn north, so that we can indeed line up with the space station and dock. And actually, the docking of the space station went pretty well, because the lander can had plenty of fuel, both regular liquid fuel oxidizer and monopropellant to perform the entire rendezvous and docking on its own. As you may or may not remember from the last episode, or not the last episode, the Mun episode, we did run out of fuel in that exploration ascent stage. Now granted, we did not have this booster stage, which was going to be needed to ascend from the surface of Duna anyway, but we were ascending from the surface of the Mun, right, and we ran out of fuel in the upper stages, dedicated ascent engine and tanks, and so we had to perform the rest of the rendezvous and docking with the command module. And I do not doubt that the shuttle could have pulled that off, But if we had to expend that much Delta V to rescue this, there is a very solid possibility that the shuttle would not have made it home. Oh dear. Well, luckily we don't have to think about that, because we did, indeed, have plenty of fuel in the upper stage to perform the rendezvous and docking, thanks to my brilliance in being able to add numbers up. Yeah, I think that bottom stage had like 1,000 meters per second, and this one has 1,700, or not 1,700. This one has like 740. So together they have 1,700, and you only need 1,450 to ascend from Duna. So in the optimal conditions, you have, 300 and something meters per second to spare. Obviously, we had less than that because of like drag and stuff, because this isn't a very aerodynamic lander. But again, like, it wasn't a huge issue, again, because Duna's atmosphere is just so tenuous. But that's in the past now. We're actually in space. We are in space above Duna, and we are now just doing an inclination change to get ourselves lined up with the space station, and then we will just perform the lazy way of docking, which is aided by the fact that Duna is much smaller than Kerbin, so it's just easier to kind of force encounters in the way where you just burn retrograde, burn prograde, burn retrograde, burn prograde, and then look at that, the space station's right there. So yeah, we will swing ourselves around. We will just make sure we're lined up with that bottom docking port at the end of the structure. Now, what I'm going to do with this lander can, I am not sure. What I want to do with it, right, is return it to Kerbin in the cargo bay of a space shuttle, but I don't know if it would be this shuttle. I'm going to call this shuttle the Type A shuttle, and you've seen the Type C shuttle, and this is kind of diverging from the way that NASA named the shuttles, right, because there was no Type A. Like, this was the orbiter vehicle, and Shuttle C was only called Shuttle C because it was a cargo, it was C standing for cargo, so there would be no shuttle Type B. But I'm going to make a shuttle Type B where it'll probably be like an orbiter like this, an orbiter vehicle, but instead of having that cockpit, it'll just have like an unmanned probe core. Yeah, that's the idea. And then it can, like, that shuttle variant can be used to bring things all the way back from, like, Duna. And then I'll probably do it like that, that slanted 2.5 meter to Mark III adapter you usually use on, like, a tail cone. I'll probably use, like, that and then just drain the fuel from it and stuff a probe core, SAS wheels, batteries, all that good stuff. That, or, like, the little cargo ramp, the Mark III cargo ramp. But I'm talking too much about that. That's, like, all in the past. What we did before was we loaded up we took all the science out, we put half of it on the shuttle to return to Kerbin, and then we put half of it on the station, and then we waited just about a year to depart, and now we're beginning the departure. And Bob spent that time in the station just performing research and sending data back to the Kerbal Space Center. And so what you just saw with Bill Kerbin and the docking port right there was the thing that I said would be important. Now, departing from the station, we had 700 meters per second, and so I thought that would be enough, because transferring to planner said it would be 600. Alright, so, just one thing real quick. So you see in this frame here, I'm using Hyper Edit to refill the fuel tank. I have a good justification for that, okay? So, basically, I'm putting up the frame right now. In the last episode, when I docked the booster thing to the space station, it had 1,021 units of liquid fuel in it, and for some reason, when I undocked it now, it had 0. I do talk about this like literally 40 minutes later into the video, but I feel like I should address it now. Yeah, so basically I don't know why it drained. Maybe I left a fuel cell on, but yeah, I just went and used I went back to the frame in the original video, saw how much fuel I had left, saw it was 1,021, and I used HyperEdit to put 1,021 and I think it was 1,248 units of oxidizer in there. Yeah, and then I went home. And then, oh, yeah, too, I used HyperEdit again, later in the video. I'm not going to find the timestamp because it was super quick. But basically there, I just needed to put a little bit of liquid fuel and oxidizer into the shuttle to keep the fuel cell running. Because for some reason, even though I turned off the fuel cell and disabled crossfeed, the engine for the booster stage, ate the fuel that I had set aside for the fuel cell. So I don't know why that happened. So yeah, full disclosure. I'm going to get back to the regular video now. But yeah, that's why I had to use HyperEdit really quick. 150 just to get the encounter, and then we perform an aero brake to capture it for free, and I thought it'd be all nice and good, but it wasn't, and because we were in such an inclined orbit, 700 was not enough. And so, thank actual God, thank heavens, I didn't just go into orbit this like I originally planned in the last episode. I did not know that this was going to be the plan. I said I'll just stick it here as a fuel depot in case I want to refuel a transit lander or something that I might bring in the future. But what it was necessary to do, what it was needed for, was to save this mission. It gave us enough fuel to perform our ejection burn, and then actually got us a good solid chunk through the way of a retrograde burn that we needed to bring ourselves down to the level of Kerbin in order to get the encounter. And that, that got us like a portion of the way through there, and then the OMS had enough on its own without that booster to get us back to the runway. So honestly, I feel like I gotta name this booster, because, this booster, it saved the mission. It saved, oh god, what are we gonna call this mission? I mean, it's gotta have a name. It's the first set of Kerbals to land on Duna. Oh, and I'm removing that docking port. But I decided rather than just, letting it drift away in space, we'll just glue it to the airlock module in the cargo bay, and we'll bring it back and we'll put it in like a museum or something. Yeah. Oh, that's why I said like maybe I want to bring back the upper stage of the first exploration lander. So like, hypothetically, R&D can look over it, analyze the effects of a spacecraft that has gone to Duna and then returned to the surface. Hope maybe to, work on developing the transit landers that can be reused. And then they could stick it in a museum. Yeah. But like this, that booster, it's the unsung hero, and the docking port too. That is the unsung hero of the crew of OTS 40. Yeah, I mean, so the launch was OTS 40 because it's the 40th mission flown by a space shuttle, and all my space shuttle missions, they just named them OTS number. It stands for like Orbital Transport System, kind of play on like NASA's STS numbering system, but instead of Space Transport System, it's Orbital Transportation System. Like just nerd shit, I don't know. So this is like the 40th mission, and this is flown by Space Shuttle Advantage, which if you are an OG of this channel, you will know is the name of my first ever space shuttle that I made all the way back in either 2021 or 2020. I'll link the video in the description. That, like, I'm not gonna hide, my old videos, because I feel like, so okay, it's kind of weird to like say, but like, after a video is up, I do like watch it, because, not to say I like to listen to myself talk, but like, I just like to see the things that I've done and see what I had to say about them after I forgot what it was I did and what it was I said about it. And so like revisiting those videos like years later, there are things in there where like I remember doing them in broad strokes, but I don't remember the specifics, and sometimes the specifics are really, really funny. And so yeah, like those videos back then, I feel like they're really cute, and it makes me kind of nostalgic in a way. But now, oh my god, this is so intense. We are re-entering Kerbin at interplanetary speeds. And oh, speaking of the name of the orbiter, originally my plan was to make this orbiter named Independence, because it was, supposed to be like it would be the 6th orbiter in the fleet. It would be like in my little mind prison head cannon, right? It would have had like a beefed up heat shield so it could perform this aero brake from interplanetary speeds. And then, its name is Independence to kind of symbolize the first independent shuttle flight to Duna, right? Because it isn't being towed by some sort of nuclear transfer vehicle. It is flying with its own propulsion system. The external fuel tank, the OMS, are what's getting it there and back. So it's an independent flight of the shuttle. And so I wanted to name it Independence, but I didn't because I was lazy, and because Advantage is like the OG. So, it had to be Advantage. Also in my little headcanon, Advantage is like the equivalent to like Challenger, and then Pacifica is like the, if you don't know, I have like my little autism mind person headcanon, right? There's 5 shuttles: Pacifica, Advantage, Athens, Pioneer, and Endurance. And then, Pacifica is the representation of Columbia, and then Advantage is a Challenger. Neither of them exploded in my headcanon, and they are flying to Mars, so I'd say I'm doing pretty well. I'd say I'm doing better than NASA. Yeah, dude, NASA, like, my space shuttle is so much better than yours. Yours could only go to, like, low Earth orbit. Mine can go to, like, Mun, can go to Minmus. Well, it can go to Mun without refueling, and Minmus as well without refueling. Granted, Minmus, it's, like, much tighter because you need to put a little bit more sort of OMS fuel into the cargo bay if you want to make that mission happen, but it can do it, and then it can perform an all-up flight to it can do this all-up flight to Duna, which you have seen in this video, and it can probably go to like Gilly, and maybe even land on Gilly because it's like so low gravity. Like the general rules, like if you have enough Delta V to go to Mun and back, you have enough Delta V to go to Gilly and back. So this could go to like Gilly probably, or like Venus. Venus doesn't have any moons in the real world. You know, it could go do a flyby around Eve. It could be used to visit in a space station, the Eve base camp, and we can perform a landing on Eve with that. I probably won't do that. I'll probably do like a Soyuz to Eve mission. And if I do that, it's not gonna go all in one rocket. I mean, unless I design some sort of like hideous, disgusting Frankenstein, where it's like a Soyuz the size of a Saturn V, and it can carry. Oh my God, wait, that'd be pretty funny if you'll do that. I have a lot of missions. Like, I have a lot of ideas for that mission. I would either do like a bunch of Soyuz flights to assemble an Eve spacecraft, and then kind of, you know, do the flight to Eve and back with a Eve lander. Like, my thought process behind that one is like, we are performing an Eve mission using only Soyuz as the launch vehicle. But I think it could also be pretty funny if I made like literally a giant rocket the size of a Saturn V, but in the shape of a Soyuz. I think that could be pretty humorous. Let me know in the comments what you think would be better. But wow, I've been talking for quite a while, and I kind of failed to even address what we were just doing in the 3 or 4 aerobrake passes we performed. Now, the first aerobrake pass was simply just an Aerocapture. My main priority there was just maintaining that high angle of pitch to keep our drag high and ensure that we lost enough velocity to actually capture around Kerbin. And then the second and third ones were just passes to sort of lower our eccentricity and make sure we maintained a kind of heading that would bring us towards the Kerbal Space Center. Now, we are very, very inclined, and so we are coming in actually quite a good bit north from where you would usually be coming in. If you look towards the left of the screen, I probably will mouse over it in a second. You can see the mountain range that's behind the Kerbal Space Center, which is usually a very like good landmark to gauge yourself by when you're trying to land a space plane at Kerbal Space Center. So like yeah, I'll probably point that out in a minute. And I actually think I probably at some point will boost the ambient lighting just so it's easier for you guys to see. But also admittedly because I was kind of having a hard time seeing where everything was, because you know landing space planes. I play this game with. Oh yeah, you can see me doing that right now. I'm just gonna go boost the ambient lighting to 50. Normally I run it at 25, and that's enough, but sometimes, you know, for this where it's something so intense and so high stakes, you gotta just boost a little bit so you can see it better. And also because I needed to see it better. Yeah, now I'm mousing over the mountains, you can see it, and then over there where I'm mousing right now is the Kerbal Space Center. I'm like doing little circles around it so you can see. That's the target. But if you were paying attention to the screen and not what I was saying a couple of minutes ago when I was like in the map screen very intensely, you know, making my little landing marker rock back and forth, I was doing that by just pitching the shuttle up and down to try to control the amount of drag because we have no engines to kind of power our flight. This is a purest stock space shuttle. Well, I guess it's not really like a fully stock space shuttle because we do have modded parts in the cargo bay making up the sort of hab module, but shh, be quiet. No. But this is a purest space shuttle. It has no way of powering itself through descent, and we are actually fully out of RCS fuel, so we don't even have RCS to kind of help us control the pitch. So all we have access to are our elevons, we have access to the SAS wheels, and that is literally it. And oh, so I do actually have to admit something. I'll probably go back and just put like a little clip of it on the screen, right? But I did have to use hyperedit to put fuel into the booster, and I think it is completely justified, and here's my reason, right? When I undocked from the space station in the last episode, or I guess when I docked it to the space station in the last episode, I had like 1200, or no, it was 1021 units of liquid fuel and then the correct amount of oxidizer to go with that in there. And for some reason when I undocked it this time, there was no liquid fuel or oxidizer in it. So what I just did was I went back to the frame where I had docked it, because I always leave the resource panel open, and I saw I had that appropriate amount of fuel, and I put it back in with hyperedit, because there's no reason that it should have drained. Theories as to why it had drained, maybe I left a fuel cell on or something, I don't know, but yeah, that, like, full disclosure, that was a thing that happened. Sorry, not sorry, because it should not have drained. And then the same thing happened with this one, like, I had to use Hyperedit, just put a little bit of oxidizer and liquid fuel into the little fuel tank that I keep reserved for the shuttle's fuel cells, because for some reason the booster engine. Okay, and I filled that tank without Hyperedit the first time with the booster engine, because that one also got drained, probably from the same fuel cell that I accidentally left on. That got drained as well. And you saw me disable crossfeed, and that booster ate the fuel anyway. So I had no shame in just putting a little bit of liquid fuel and oxidizer in there, just to keep the lights on, right? Because like we didn't actually gain any usable delta V from that, because we cannot use those SSMEs without the external fuel tank. Otherwise, the thrust, the angle where the center of thrust is and the center of mass will just cause us to like flip and pitch out of control. So we didn't get any delta V from that. And actually, we technically lost a tiny bit of delta V because it's extra mass and weight. It's extra mass fuel mass that is not, well, it's essentially dry mass that the OMS has to push because it's not usable OMS fuel. But I did not use Hyperedit to give ourselves any more monopropellant, because I'm a professional at this video game, and despite the mistakes that I made, yeah, I did this anyway. We are gliding it in, performing a high G bank, and oh yeah. So before that, like, you saw me very, very aggressively, tangent aside, you saw me very, very aggressively banking it while there were still a lot of re-entry gases, which I don't really like to do. But the problem with this re-entry, right, if you are coming in so inclined and so far north compared to where you normally want to be coming in for a space shuttle landing, we had to perform a very, very aggressive sort of, again, like you saw this in my other shuttle landing, it's this sort of pseudo heading alignment cone where we're very aggressively banking and pitching in order to literally just turn around 180 degrees in the sort of U shape. But yeah, so this was now, like, truth be told, this entire mission, like, I was winging it 100%. I had done zero math, zero sort of calculations. I was just purely relying on eyeballing it and general game sense, professional gamer senses to perform this landing. And by the time I got to this part, I was like, I knew exactly what to do, right? This is exactly where I was 2 weeks ago, landing the shuttle from low Kerbin orbit. And so by this point I knew it was in the bag. But you're going to see my proof that beyond a shadow of a doubt, I am the greatest space shuttle pilot in all of Kerbal Space Program YouTube, I guess. Yeah, Matt Lown, please come at me. Yeah. And I'm kind of struggling on what to title this video, right? Because I'm between a few things. I'm between just like my standard kind of like, sending a space shuttle to Duna, or like first putting the first Kerbals onto Duna. But then I'm also thinking, like, years ago, I did a video where I one-upped Matt Lown by sending a Gemini spacecraft to the Mun. And I'm thinking, because he did a video sending a space shuttle to the Mun, and I'm thinking, like, it could be funny, right, if I title this video one-upping Matt Lown again by sending a space shuttle to Duna. But I mean, also in that same breath, it's not really a one-up on him because we didn't actually land the shuttle on Duna. It just kind of went to Duna and a separate spacecraft went down. But yeah, that's kind of where I'm at in the process of naming this video. Oh, and we landed. Now this landing, we came in really fast, like way faster than I normally do on space shuttle landings. And we came in about halfway down the runway, which is normally fine for a space shuttle landing. Because we were coming in so fast, we actually overran the runway. But if you just wait and watch, nice and slow, we're gonna turn off the brakes, and we're just gonna turn it around and let it roll. I'll yap a bit while this is happening, but you'll see why we're kind of just turning it around. That's where I'm at with like the sort of naming status of this video. I'll probably have like either a picture of the lander on Duna, or maybe like the space shuttle in orbit over Duna. I don't know what I want to focus on. I kind of want to focus on like the space shuttle being at Duna, right? Because like that's something you don't see every day. Like Duna landings, you see those pretty often on Kerbal Space Program YouTube. But what you don't see is like a purist space shuttle flying to Duna. And so I think that could be an interesting thumbnail / like concept title for the video. I'd say give me your thoughts in the comments, but like by the time that people are watching and able to comment on this video, right, they would have already seen the title and thumbnail, and I would have already kind of settled on it. So it's kind of a moot point, I guess. And I guess talking about this is also kind of moot, right? Because again, by the time people are watching this video and hearing me talk about it, I would have found the solution. I would have found the answer to my problem, or I guess I would have found the solution to my dilemma. And now that I'm kind of done with that little yap session, we can see, yeah, we turned around and we landed on the runway. We landed like this. We did not overrun. We put it down on the runway. First try. I am the greatest shuttle pilot to ever grace the internet. But honestly, I wasn't satisfied with this, right? Like, we did put it down on the runway, all in one piece, mind you. The first try. This was my first take. I made a lot of quick saves, but I didn't actually use any quick saves during the descent or the landing. You know, I was not satisfied with that. I wanted to put it down the right way. I knew I had it in me because I've done it many times before. I have landed space shuttles coming in from Minmus, from the Mun before. This is not anything that's out of my abilities within this video game. And so I loaded my last quick save, and I decided that I'm going to put this down on the runway without overrunning. I'm gonna do it the right way, and not pretend that I did it right the first time. Because I did want to show like the fully unedited take, literally first take of me putting the oh my god, I'm sorry. I did want to show the fully unedited first take of me putting the shuttle down on the runway, all in one piece, and with only a little bit of an overrun that we were able to kind of recover into being on the runway. But that wasn't enough. I need to truly prove my prowess in this game, in my skills of flying space shuttles in this game. I believe the space shuttle can achieve anything with a skilled enough pilot, and this video is living proof of this. We went to Duna. We flew the external fuel tank into low Kerbin orbit. We docked to the space station with the external fuel tank still attached, which is a pain in the ass because RCS has very low thrust and the fuel tank is very, very heavy. We did that, and then we fueled the fuel tank, which is something NASA has not done. Orbital refueling has not been a thing yet. I mean, it's been thought of for quite a long time, and I know SpaceX has been working on it, but it has not been done. So I did that with the space shuttle, mind you, some shit from the 70s, and then I brought that all the way to Duna, which, you know, NASA hasn't even sent people to fly around Mars, and, you know, I just put them down on the surface of Mars, and I brought them home in a space shuttle. This vehicle was on the pad just 2.5 years ago. It was sitting on the pad, and now it is back on the runway in 1 second. In like 2 seconds ago, we put it down, buttered that landing. It was a little bit dicey trying to, like, on the little final approach, just trying to bleed off speed because I didn't want to touchdown but going too fast. But we did it. You just watched me put it down on the runway a second time, buttered, might I add, all in one piece. And we did not overrun, and, you know, this space shuttle just came back all the way from Duna. It came very far, no thrust. At the point of Kerbin entry, we had like 11 meters per second, and we wasted all that on RCS. And so, you know, really, to me, this proves the prowess of not only the space shuttle as the most amazingly awesome spacefaring vehicle ever designed by anybody, but also my prowess at playing this video game for children. And with that, I think I'm going to wrap up this video. Of course, this will not be the last one on this channel, and it will not be the last one I make of this series of going to Duna. We'll be sending down some surface bases, some other station parts. We'll probably need to figure out a solution for the whole needing that, extra booster stage to get back to Kerbin. We'll figure out a solution for that. We'll send more space shuttles. But in the meantime, you know, if you made it all this way through, please subscribe to this channel. Please leave a comment. Please like this video. Please subscribe to the main channel. Links in the description as always. And click on one of the 2 videos on the screen now. On the left is a video selected for you by YouTube's recommendation algorithm. And on the right is my most recent upload.